I'm Kyle Lacy, and this is my fear journey.
When I was thinking through who could I ask to go through the fear journey, I wanted someone that I guess first I knew was just like kind of experimental at their core, that they were up for trying something that didn't have a lot of form to it yet, because I knew I could kind of explain the fear journey to someone, but I also knew I was going to need someone who could kind of take a leap of faith. And then I also wanted someone that I knew had an interest in vulnerability, that had shown hints of being on a personal journey of self-discovery. And so when I thought through those different criteria, that was what led me to Kyle Lacy. Obviously, as a marketer, you can't do great things if you aren't open to experimentation, and you don't have to look far on Kyle's social media footprint to see that like he's really vulnerable, and self-discovery was certainly part of, I felt like, a path he was on. So I reached out and said, hey, Kyle, I've got a crazy ask. What do you think about doing this fear journey? And he said yes. So I'm super grateful for Kyle for kind of free falling into this experience. The question that I had at the beginning of this was going through my own fear journey, starting with the fear interview, having really intentional conversations with people that I knew I admired or that I knew loved me, to really play out my fear statement in different scenarios. I wanted to see if my mind would change, and I wanted to see if my patterns could change. I wanted to see if my beliefs could change. And it was a profound experience for me personally. And so my question to myself was, is this transferable? Can I give this experience to someone else who's also ready for it? And it's been such an exciting journey for me to see Kyle go through this kind of in anticipation of, is he going to be different? Like, is he going to be changed? What's going to happen? But I think you have to be ready. Like so many things in life, I have heard, I'm sure you have too, the statement of when the student is ready, the teacher will come. And I think it's really interesting that for Kyle, this fear journey took place in a really big change for him. Lessonly was sold, and fear can really have a loud voice when there's change. And Kyle has a bigger job now. He has more responsibility, he has more influence, he has more people under him. And so to be able to help Kyle on his journey of becoming a stronger leader, to have more impact, is really, it's very satisfying for me. I'm really excited about that. Is the fear journey transferable?
I'd say it is transferable, mainly just because the one thing that it forces you to do, other than understanding how you view fear and how you think about fear, it helps you communicate with others who are in the same boat or have lived through it. Like it's forcing the conversation. That's why I believe all of this is transferable, because you're communicating and you're talking about the struggle and how to shift the mindset. It's given me like a playbook or tenets or templates of how to live a better life, with the values, understanding legacy, and getting over fear of failure, or at least shifting the mindset around the fear of failure. It's given me the, setting values appropriately, understanding the legacy, and understanding failure is, I think it's helpful. And so I have the tools to be able to go out there and say, all right, I'm gonna live this a little bit differently now. And it's not necessarily like when we first started this, where you're supposed to tell fear no. It's just that it's not as loud. It will always be there, but it's a mindset change. But I don't think you ever conquer it. I don't think honestly, I'm not sure if you should strive to fully conquer it. I'm not sure if that's possible.
Next up, you're going to hear our conversation with Kyle and Nathaniel, reflecting on Kyle's fear journey.
Kyle, one of the things that did stick out with me where I felt connected to you when you told me about, like, your whole religious education. And so I did kind of want to know just in the whole faith piece. And I wanted to highlight that to me, Kyle, I really believe, I don't want to push this on you, that you're a real faithful man, like spiritually. And I just meant that you really love people and you really care for people. And it was really key. I could see that. And you don't want to hurt people. So, in my definition, that's being a faithful spiritual person. But I did want to know from you, man, like, what was your experience, and did you see like how faith or just religion has hurt you in a different perspective at all?
After my conversation with Joe Staples, who, the devout Mormon has been his entire life, basically, and somebody that I really look up to, I didn't dig really deep into the religion side of this. I think it was more, and this actually presents itself multiple times throughout the interviews. It's a reframing. Like, it's not, I don't see it as faith, I see it as values. So it's not a belief in something. It is a, what set of values do I agree with? Like, how do I want to live? Because ultimately, when I was talking to Joe, it came down to the set of values that he lives and that he lives out as a father, as a marketer and leader, as a grandfather. And that kind of helped me on the fear side, because it just completely it didn't negate the fear of faith. It reframed it
That's good.
to where I think that the fear was more around, I I still don't, I'm working on it. I don't have a set of values to look at. And that's where the fear came from. It wasn't necessarily the fact that I was hurt by a Church of God or evangelical Christianity or whatever. It was just like, I don't know what my values are. And that's where the fear came from.
One of the deep things that you struggled with that the fear interview exposed is just to dig deep, period. Right.
Mhm.
So I'll be honest that even like right now, I don't necessarily believe everything you're saying because I know you have the ability not to dig deep. Like there is a fear of digging deep. So I think that there are certain things you could refrain that as long as you don't have to
Mhm.
dig deep, you don't want to do that. You had a fear of digging deep, but yeah, in essence, your values. That's really what makes people who they are. And no matter if somebody has faith or religion or whatever, bottom line is it's values that they're trying to follow and live by. And so that makes total sense. But yeah, Kyle, when you say you weren't hurt by something, well, you already told me that, I don't know if you want to dig to find out what you were hurt
Mhm.
by or if you were hurt by anything.
Well, I think that what we talked about, and there was a lot to unpack there, and I do agree with you. Tiffany and I talked about that, just how I use humor to deflect, right? Which is, I'm just good at it. Part of the fear, which I think has I have settled on, is that part of the fear was I didn't know how to raise my kids without that structure.
Yeah.
And that was where, like, I don't have the I don't have the context or the playbook, because I grew up in the church, and we don't go to church. And I mean, we were there three times a week.
Yeah.
Like, that's where my friends were. Like, that was it. Like, that was our social circle. And with talking to Joe, and I have no, like, it just randomly just hit me in the middle of the conversation with him. It's really just about defining the values you believe in and making sure that you try to live by them as close as possible. And it's defining of the value set that I can then hand to my children through action, right? That kind of, at least a part of the fear was reframed, and it made me at peace. I could just feel at peace about it.
That's good.
And I can't really explain it, honestly.
So, what are the values? What values did you discover that you're at peace with, that you're fine with, and that makes that's fulfilling to you and that gives you peace? What are those values?
Still working on them, but I do have a few that I've written down and have kind of internalized, which is respect for others, everyone, and giving back. I think part of my struggle is that I want to make sure that my children understand the value of giving back to others,
Yeah.
no matter who it is, and that they are that they will give energy, monetary, time, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
to other people, because that's part of where I've always, I think you and I talked about this, where I've always struggled with some of the religious side of this, is
Yeah.
that it tends to be fairly ego driven. At least on that was my case, right?
Mm-hmm.
Growing up in it, and I think that helps me kind of reframe how I want my children to act and live. Those are the two main ones, like respect and giving back. Um, are ones that I'm going to try as much as possible to invest in, both with words as well as action.
And I would say just some of the things I experienced with you is that's exactly what you're doing. Like you're giving back to people. The information that you share that's insightful, the things that people can just pick up from listening to you. To me, that's actually practicing, those values at the same time. I kind of want to know what caused you or what gave you the ability to kind of speak like that? Is that just natural for you? Did you ever make a decision? Is that just you being Kyle and talking to people? Like, where does that come from?
AOL Instant Messenger. Like seriously, I don't know. I don't plan any of it. I just post it. The one thing I will say to that is that it is easier to post stuff online than it is to like have those conversations in person and dig deep and be intentional with
Mm,
people.
mm.
Right. So I would say, yeah, I'm very good at that. I'm less I need to work on being intentional with people in person and digging deep like my aunt did. That value set that she imparted to us, right? To answer your question directly, it is more just me.
Like just kind of spontaneous.
All of it is.
Okay. So when you say your aunt, what can you tell me more about that? Like, what is it what's the digging deep she could do?
She whenever we would go out to the river where we called it Magic Cabin, we did our family reunions there once a year, and it was really special for us because we lived in Indiana and the rest of my family lived in Washington and Idaho, and this place is in northern Idaho, and we got to do it every summer. Like we went out there, spent a week out there. We were really close with that group, that family, my mom's family, and every time that we showed up, she would be intentional about sitting down one on one with each cousin
Mm.
and just and then following up on things, right? Like whether that was a text message or a call or a letter before we all had phones in our pockets. uh, she gave her time and energy to invest in others, um, whether it was almost every cousin got married there, and
Wow.
that's a lot of work to
Yeah.
have 80 people out at a house, and then like you're like even just the septic system. Good Lord, right? But for her, that was her love language. Like she invested with time and energy, and it's easy to say, it's so difficult to do
Yeah.
and be intentional about it. And she did it with everyone.
Mm.
Like I learned through her memorial that was normal. And I was telling we were talking about it earlier, Tiffany and I, and my cousin like has been reading her journals. She kept a journal since she was like 15, and she was talking about all that stuff when she was in high school, like it being 16, 17 years old.
Wow.
It was just something that she was always striving for, understanding in others that does not come naturally to most people.
So a part of me does want to know, can you talk to me? Because I don't really know. I didn't get that information from you yet. what you may have liked about it, what you didn't like about it, what was uncomfortable, what was insightful. Like, help me out on that perspective, what that was like for you.
Um, I I really enjoyed the framing of the third person, like speaking in third person and humanizing fear. That was just really insightful in general, right? And I mean, I think you and I even talked about this after the interview, but we did dig a little bit too much into the face side, in my opinion. But as you said, not digging deep is part of my problem, right? But I like even the faith statement. Good Lord, the fear statement. Um, it helped. Like I did it, and but what was interesting was my fear statement changed throughout the interview process. Not our interview, but throughout my conversations with people. And as I was telling other people about it, like what I'm going through, whether that was coworkers or my parents or my wife, it like the fear statement evolved, and it evolved into a um, not a negative, which I think mine was "fuck you," right? I think that was my fear statement. It evolved into I get to deal with this. Now my fear statement is, what would Wendy do, my aunt? Um,
That's good.
but it shifted it. It reframed it into more positive. I think that's what's so powerful about it. I would have never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
If we hadn't had that first conversation, and I hadn't had just even, you probably could have done it in 30 minutes, just through understanding how to hear it and then speaking to it and making it real, making it truth, and then dealing with it.
Where do you find yourself using it the most? What would Wendy do? Where do you find yourself using that? Like, when does that come up? Have you noticed?
What's interesting is that I don't find myself thinking about fear that often, which is really odd. And I don't know if that's just because I have like the reality distortion field where I'm just ignoring it. I don't think it ever goes away, but so in conversations with people, like Wendy wouldn't just ask you, how are you, and then leave. And I do that all the time. She approached it where she wanted to learn something or know something before she stepped away from any conversation, which sometimes was annoying because sometimes you just don't you don't want to have those conversations, and it's painful for me to even say that it was annoying sometimes. But that is where I'm using it the most, is to say, all right, in this certain situation, whether it's a one-on-one with a teammate or playing with my kids or whatever, it's more of a framing of what she would do, not necessarily how she would react to fear.
What would Wendy do? Well, man, why do you have to make that sound like, what would Jesus do?
I was kind of, to be honest with you, I was waiting for you to say
I
that.
knew you were. That's why I said it. Like, when is this dude going to get religious on me and do that to me?
WWWD. Right?
What would Wendy do? Yeah, man, I really appreciate, your participation. I really appreciate, just the feedback. It helps me when I'm doing this process. And a part of what I like to do when I talk to people that have gone through this is kind of share that extraordinary experience that, from my perspective, we talked a little bit about it, but it's externalization. I get to see the separation of a human being totally from their fear. And so talking to you, one of the things that I really enjoyed is it became clear. Sometimes what happens when you do this, like, motives of what people really want to happen come out. And I don't know, man, it just became clear how much you really care for people and want to give back. And it's like a motive that you have. So, a part of me was digging, right, about like where that comes from. And a part of why I'm doing that, Kyle, and the thing with faith is because you don't like to necessarily go deep, it was clear fear was telling you that what would happen if you went deep, what you might see,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so that's why it was very important that I could, highlight that what fear is hiding if you go deep is that Kyle, there's a part of Kyle that is just simply a Mr. Rogers good person.
Mr. Rogers.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. And what's ironic to me is that's what you're doing on LinkedIn. Like I come across something, see LinkedIn, it's Kyle being a nice guy, communicating with people, getting them to, see simple things in work that could be helpful that are not helpful. And it became clear that's what fear was hiding. It was like, it was telling you, hey, Kyle, if you go deep, Jeffrey Dahmer's there. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
some scary.
Or it's just facing reality.
Yeah.
Or at least the real, I think that I have reframed a lot, and it's been very powerful. But there's, the work never ends.
Yeah.
And that is very apparent.
So, Kyle, I'm going to leave you with this, sir. All right, because this is my job. It's what I do for a living. Right. If you want to still go down the journey of going deeper, a part of that is that therapeutic process. The thing I did challenge you about is that it was very deep when you talked about family. And I know your sons one day are going to want deeper parts of you. Your kids are going to want deeper parts of you. So it is important that as you grow, and I love what you said about the reframing, because it's like as you evolve, your fear statement evolved, right? So that part of you, that depth part, because the last thing I want to say is I saw that that's what you want to do. You wanted to have the ability to have deeper conversations sometimes, whether you're engaging with people or you have questions, but that fear would keep you from doing that. So make sure to keep pushing yourself in that area, because what you're going to find there, man, is some pretty good stuff, man. It's probably a corny dude with a sweater on, man. Like
Oh, I hope so. I hope.
Yes, sir.
It took me a while to get through this journey, but I think that I'm glad that Tiffany asked me to do it, because it was whenever you can experience something that teaches you a little bit more about yourself, it's valuable. And it's rare that, because we're moving so quickly all the time, and it's really hard to be present, and it's hard to take time to think, to be still. This process has helped me at least think through some of that.
My observations of Kyle through the process: when we met the first time in person after he had done his fear interview, he was still very guarded. It was like we are doing a marketing thing together, was more the energy that he brought. And when we were doing some just like post audio reflection on his fear journey, I had this kind of intuition moment where I realized every time we kind of got close to an issue that was real, Kyle would deflect it with humor, or he'd laugh, or he'd kind of like try to, in a very congenial way, kind of distract the conversation. And my intuition was pricked of like, he's deflecting. And in that moment, I had a choice to make of like, am I going to run into the roar here and call him on this and kind of push him into the process? Or is that going to piss him off? And he's going to be like, hey, look, this whole thing is on my terms. And I chose the former. I said, hey, Kyle, can I share an observation with you? We don't have to include this as part of your journey, but I'm experiencing every time we get close to a real situation or a real conversation or a real issue, that you deflect it, that you kind of steer the car back towards the center of the road. And I don't think that's where the real work is going to be done. And how does that serve you? How does that show up in your life? How does that impact relationships that you have? And for me, that was a nudge where Kyle began to understand this isn't something that's going to happen to him. He's going to have to really make a decision of whether or not he's going to choose to engage his conscious awareness in this process or not. And I'm really thankful. I think it was really beautiful to see Kyle explore some things that were really hard and painful and at the surface scary, and to experience him at the end, I think, more liberated from those fears than he was at the beginning. And for all of us, it's a journey. But to hear him say, I know I'll be a better leader. I know I can be more present. I know I'm going to be more intentional in a way to honor my aunt's life with the relationships and people around me and having real meaningful conversation and connection. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what this whole thing is about impact. And I'm excited to see what he continues to do from here. As we launch Kyle's Fear Journey, we are doing a wrap on season 2. We learned a lot as kind of a new podcaster. I'm really growing in appreciation that this is such a creative process of discovering what do you want to say and what do you observe in the world and how do you use story and experience to distinctly help other people on their journeys. So thank you for those who've been listening this season. I really appreciate it. In the show notes, actually, there's a link for feedback. We'd love to know, what do you want more of? What do you want less of? Do you want more episodes, less episodes? What were the ones that really resonated with you? Do you wish they were a little longer, a little shorter? I do this for 2 reasons. I think one is it's a bit of a audio diary for me so that I can remember what I've experienced. And the second is that I really want my journey, my experiences, my hurt, my victories, my life experiences to be able to help people who are pursuing a similar path, to people who are pursuing a passionate life filled with many, many ands. So if you have it's 3 to 5 minutes, I think, to complete it. You can do it on your phone. Go to the show notes and click on the link. We'd love to hear your feedback so that we can get better and better at just sharing the content you want to hear. We're going to have a little bridge into season 3. Season 3 will start in January, but we've got some surprises planned for you here through the holiday season, so certainly continue to tune in. Season 3 is really going to be focused on the stories and conversations with senior executive women. I have had some really interesting conversations over the last 3 months as I share that I'm on this journey of living a life scared confident. It has opened up some really special conversations, I'd say in private, over lunches, over coffee, in small group settings. And I want to take some of those conversations and a few others that I have been just really wanting to bring into this conversation of how do you, as a woman or, a spouse of a woman with many, many dreams, how do you really assemble all of the pieces so that you can passionately live a life of and that is really my, I'd say, kind of like brand statement for the 3rd season, as I've thought about the fact that, I am Tiffany, and I am a wife, and I am a mom, and I am an entrepreneur, and I am a CEO, and I'm a board member, and I'm an investor, and I'm a podcaster, and I'm a business owner. There were times when my mind wanted to make much fewer ands, but my heart and passion wanted there to be so many things I was doing. And so for others who have the cry of their heart to live a life of many ands, I'm going to have some just rich conversations with executive women, senior executives, senior leaders who I'd say have a similar place in life to me, but we all have slightly different journeys. So I'm going to be learning from them. Excited for you to be listening in on those conversations as well. So that's what's going to be happening in the first quarter of 2022. I hope you're ending this year strong, that you're taking some time this holiday season to be intentional about what your ands should be, what you want them to be in 2022, and maybe in some intentional decisions about the distractions that you want to remove from your life so that you can be more focused. As always, if there's anything that we can do to help, if there's questions that you have that we can answer, never hesitate to reach out. I'm a text away, 317-350-8921, 317-350-8921. Thanks for listening.